Why doesn't family intervention work? Because it doesn't. I'd love it if it did, but it doesn't. What's your thoughts on that?
Throughout my years, I have dealt with a raft of cases. There are a few that spring to mind where, again, it's a female, has come to me, has started the legal process, has walked through the legal process, has continued with it, and then has suddenly decided, no more. I want to end the court proceedings because my family and his family have been talking, and we feel that court proceedings is making the situation worse. Whatever's happened has happened. Ultimately, we wish to reconcile for the sake of our children. Now, as a lawyer, I give advice, which is, if you abandon the court proceedings, then that's it. There are no orders. It's then a matter for you. And then what would happen is 12 months, 15 months, 18 months later, the client would return again. And the usual, I don't want to use the word story, but I can't think of another one, but the usual explanation would be everything was okay for the first 3 months, and then there was deterioration. And then I spoke to my mum, who spoke to my father, who spoke to his uncle, who spoke to my husband. There was a brief improvement, and then it deteriorated again. And then I spoke to my mother, and it becomes this cycle, and then people stop speaking. There is no reporting that the situation has deteriorated because it becomes this tiresome cycle. And unless there is something more robust, and when I say more robust, I go back to things like therapy, marriage counselling, domestic violence perpetrators program, and I would also recommend women who are victims of abuse, domestic abuse, to also go on programs where they learn about what constitutes domestic abuse. Over the years, I had so many clients who would say, I would say, oh, is he violent to you? And they'd say, well, not really. And then they would describe an incident which would have something which is glaringly obvious. It's an act of violence. But they had become desensitized to it. So, raising of the voice and threatening to kill wasn't deemed as violence because he didn't touch me, but he threatened to kill you. If somebody makes a threat to kill, that's a criminal offence. Is that correct? You've worked in the police force.
If the recipient of the threat has a genuinely held belief that the threat will be carried out.
Yes. Well, I've had cases where clients did believe that they were at significant risk of harm, so they ran off upstairs and locked themselves in the bathroom and then came out 2 hours later, by which time he had gone. And then they come to see me and say, well, he just shouted and frightened me. But that, in their mind, doesn't constitute domestic abuse.